Right, hi everybody. Yeah, that was a weird takeoff. I had a suggestion of a flight, which I thought looked quite good, and it's flight into Juneau, the capital of Alaska, and but it's taking off from this island off of Washington, East Sound, Washington, Orcas Island Airport. To say the runway was a bit short would be an understatement. But if you go back and have a look, you'll see it was interesting. We got off the air, got off the ground, sort of. Didn't hit anything on the way, sort of. So I mean, can't grumble at that. So it's a fairly long flight, this one, I think. But we might be able to see some interesting scenery along the way. I had to fly most of the initial climb up to 11,000 feet in manual. I don't quite know why the autopilot won't kick in, but it didn't. So let's have a quick look at the map. Nothing really special about the autopilot. Right, we're obviously going a completely different route to what the VATSIM route planned was. But this is the island we took off from. Whoops. Just around here somewhere. Anyway. So we're going all the way up here. All the way up here. All the way up here. And then we're going to come and do a landing into Juneau. I have flown into Juneau before. The scenery is amazing around there. It's one of the places that if I had to choose a place I'd like to go, it's there. One of my great ambitions, sort of bucket list item as it were, is to see the Northern Lights. I've seen them once before. I was on a British Airways flight from Heathrow to Tokyo, and the flight actually took the polar route because it's the shortest way, quickest way to get there. So it flew up to Anchorage in Alaska, and we stopped there for refueling and a bit of a leg stretch, and then we went from Anchorage over the North Pole and down the other side to Japan. And while we were over the North Pole, the Northern Lights were absolutely amazing. And we seemed to be right in the middle of them because we were obviously flying very high. And that stuck with me for years, and I've just wanted to see them ever since. In fact, I've been looking at how we could sort of pull that off. There are places in Norway, top end of Norway, like Tromsø, which you can see the lights quite well if they're there. And this is of course the issue, that you could spend thousands of dollars going on a trip that's going to take you days and days and days to get there, you know, to sort it out. And then you end up spending 5 days or 6 days or however long it is waiting for the cloud to clear, and it never does, and you see nothing. That would be the ultimate annoying thing. So I'm largely letting us fly by ourselves at the moment. I've got the weather set to clear skies because it did look like there was some cloud over Alaska. Lovely. I'm not sure how long this flight is going to take altogether. I should have checked that first, really. I know we had to put a lot of fuel on. Progress. Do you know what? I'm not sure how to check how long it will be till we get there. Never mind. We'll get there when we get there. And just enjoy these views while we're on the way. Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time in the Far East. I was based in Osaka for a bit, and then had to fly to Tokyo fairly regularly. I missed JAL 123, the jumbo that crashed, by a week. Same plane, I've been on it a few times. I just wasn't due to fly that week, so luck. Okay, climb up to 340. Really high really high cruise height this time. But we're not in any hurry to get up there, so we might as well do it the gentle way and save a bit of fuel, rather than steaming up there at full power to try and get there as quickly as we can. So remember this blue arrow that points in towards the line? That's when we're going to achieve the preset height. So we're not going to get to 34,000 feet for nearly 60 miles, but that's okay because we've still got a long way to go. Even with this at its full range, that's 240, 160, 240, 320, over 300 miles. We're not even seeing it on the screen yet. This is probably going to be one of my longest flights yet. Yeah, I found out because I hadn't posted any videos for a while that although I was still allowed to go live, I wasn't allowed to have monetization. So I've actually got to get another 3,000 hours of viewing for your viewing pleasure. Yeah, 3,000 hours of views before I can. Is it 3,000 or 2,000? I can't remember. I know I've got to get quite a lot of viewing hours. I've had 800 hours in the past couple of months, which I think is pretty incredible. Just checking everything's working okay. Now, I'm thinking... Don't know what this mountain range is. Someone can tell me. The beauty of these long flights is you're not in such a hurry to get things done. With the short flights, like, say for example, Dublin to Glasgow or something like that, you basically get up to your cruise height and then you're already thinking about decreasing height and slowing down and everything else. At least with this you get a chance to enjoy the views for a bit. So where are we? We are at 29,200. Still got 10, 20, 30, 35 miles before we reach our cruise height. Now, the VOR says it's 123 nautical miles, but I don't know what that's to. Y2T, so that's partly along the flight path. I don't know what Alaska's like now, but I understood when I was there for a bit that small private aircraft basically had right of way, and people use them like cars. It's such a big place. My experience of Alaska is limited to one short stopover and a few days when I was working on a rig out there, and watching a lot of TV. There's a reasonable amount of TV comes out of Alaska, these sort of documentary type programs where the building their cabins out in the wild, miles from anywhere. Nobody wants anything from us. Have to keep listening. Excuse my little cough. Even up here, you can see there's some turbulence. We're getting shaken around a little bit. It's not a great deal, but I think if I was in the cabin, I might be noticing it. Let's have a quick look at the left window. See if the wings are moving at all. Not really, but there's little shakes every now and again. I guess that's just the way the air flies over the tops of the mountains and causes ridge lift and such like. I'm trying to do is get the best outside view. That's pretty good. So, I haven't demonstrated an emergency yet, so if anybody wants to see me handle an emergency. Just type what emergency you want to stick in the plane, in the chat, in the text, so in the chat box, and I'll have a look at sorting that out. I've been practicing engine fires, flying on one engine, hydraulic failures, electrical failures. There's quite a kick there. That was some turbulence around, unless there's another plane a few miles ahead of us that I can't see just now. Because you can get turbulence from a plane that's ahead of you, but I can't see anything on the radar. You could always request a higher cruising altitude. The worst turbulence I've ever had, I was flying into an English airport called Bristol. Bristol Airport is on the top of a hill. It's either covered in cloud, or it's foggy, or the wind is blowing so fast that the plane bounces around like a cork on the ocean. And I would say by that time I was a seasoned flyer. I had never been airsick. Certainly didn't feel airsick that day. And I could smell the breakfast coming round, and I was sort of half asleep, and I opened my eyes, and all I could see was the stewardesses running backwards and forwards with paper bags for people. It was so bouncy. The aircraft was literally bouncing around, and by the time we got into Bristol, everybody was going, "Oh, I can't stand it," and I missed my breakfast. Not fair. And the only other time I've felt queasy on a flight, and this was a flight from, where was I going? I think I was going from Heathrow to Lagos, and the company always flew us business class because that's what they did. And I was the only person in the little section on my side of the aircraft, apart from one other person. And this other person, really unfortunately, I felt so sorry for her, was a fairly heavily pregnant woman who spent the whole time being sick. And I felt it would be the ultimate rudeness if I said, "Could I move to another seat, please?" So I put up with it and talked to her and tried to make her feel more comfortable. But yeah, that was a long flight. I think that was British Airways as well. You can see the plane being jostled around a bit. There's this very fine layer of cloud here. Have a quick look and see how we're doing for height. Oh, we're at cruise. Yeah, so we're at the speed, altitude is cruise, we're in nav mode, everything is good. So I think I might just ask for a quick increase altitude a couple of thousand. Excuse me. Might be too far away from them for them to hear me. I haven't done any transatlantic flights yet. I think that's going to be my next long haul flight. I quite fancy the idea of the going across the transatlantic routes and the setting up the what is it, cell call and stuff like that. I used to listen to that quite a lot on one of the air radio systems. So I have no clue where we are. Looking at the map isn't going to help me. You see, just like before, I'm not getting all the messages. Anybody know where that is? Long way to go. I wonder if the sun shield will help. No, that just takes away any detail that's there, doesn't it? Yeah, maybe 30 years ago, I used to travel all over the world. I was an engineer that worked on specialized oil rig equipment, and literally we'd get a moment's notice to go from one job to another. I did a lot of time out in the Far East, South Korea, Japan, places like that, and a huge amount of time in the North Sea, in the British and the Norwegian sector. I actually have the distinction of being deported from Norway because I'd worked there more than 6 months in a year. I arrived at Bergen one night, not very late, it was just dark because of the time of year, and I was told that I couldn't come in, and I had to get back on the plane I was on and go back home. And then they had the cheek to try and ask me to pay tax in Norway. Could you believe that? Norwegian tax is phenomenal. I'll let our company accountant deal with it. I wasn't going to play that game. They must have got sorted out because about 4 weeks later I was back out to Norway again. At that time, in the British sector, the conditions were pretty horrible. If you were a proper crew member, you would get a cabin that you probably shared with 2 other people, and or maybe 3 other people, but you kept your own bunk. If you're a contractor, you were stuck into a cabin that maybe had 6 bunks in it, and 6 of them would be being used during the day shift and 6 would be being used during the night shift. So you were basically hot bunking. It was the worst thing ever. The Norwegian sector at that time, they started instituting the single cabin thing. There was a platform called Heimdall, and I was involved in a lot of equipment on there, and I spent months on that platform, and I was in a cabin on my own. Amazing. The cabins were actually set out for 2 people, 2 single beds, but because they'd instituted this single cabin rule, I had the whole room to myself, or the whole cabin to myself. It was pretty good. The only bad thing about it was I was working night shift the whole time I was there, and as it was a platform in construction, the day shift crew would often trip a fire alarm by welding in the wrong place or something like that, and you'd find that the alarm would go off. You'd have to get out of bed, get into your survival suit, make your way to the lifeboat, get in the lifeboat, strap yourself in, sit there for 20 minutes while they sorted out the alarm, get off the lifeboat, go back to bed, get up again, get your survival suit off because you were too tired to notice. I quite enjoyed those times, actually. I used to really enjoy the helicopter flights. The main helicopters we used were Sikorsky S-60s at the beginning. Then there was Super Pumas and things like that. But I went on out in the Norwegian sector. They used the what's the name of the helicopter with the two blades? Brain dead. Anyway, it's a long, thin helicopter with a blade at the back and a blade at the front. And that was like being inside a baked bean tin. It was so squashed. And you had to wear the cold weather survival suit, which meant that you were literally sweating like crazy the whole time. And there was so much vibration from the helicopter. It wasn't the sort of vibration that lulled you off to a nice sleep either. It was just rattles, made your teeth rattle. Well, there's not much to see at the moment. I tried the other day using this function, the travel to function, and I thought, if I just do that, I can go to the top of my descent and the start of the descent phase, and that'll get me there quickly. Well, what it actually did was get me floating on the water very quickly. I have no idea what happened, and of course that meant that I'd crashed, and that was the end of that flight after about an hour of flying around, which was a bit annoying. I'm just wondering, while we're flying here, I might put on the bit of video that I made for the flying around the statue of Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. I'm not sure how I can get that set up very easily on this. I'm sure there's a way. I'm using Streamlabs. And I know there's a way you can put it into like cinematic mode where you can set it schedule stream. I was looking for that for ages. Alright, that's it there, I think. Studio mode. Right, so you can still see me there. So on this screen now, what I'm going to do is set up now, and of course I've got to find it as well, which is the next thing. No, I think I'm going to give up on that idea just now. I've got the feeling I'm going to do something terribly wrong and break something.
Hello, this is Lucas. How can I help you?
Thank you for calling online support. My name is Sam. How may I help you?
It's G as in Bravo, Z as in Bravo.
There we go. Whoosh. I think that's it. Yeah, I'm live again. Sorry about that. I know that there's a way I can put it into studio mode, so I can mess about with the settings on one screen while you're watching the other one, and then switch between the two. I can't remember how to use it, so I'm going to set that up another time, because the little video I made of flying around the statue of Christ the Redeemer in was really good. I used the Volo plane, or whatever it was called. It's the electric powered, like a drone, effectively, and it worked exceptionally well. I'm going to just try and do that again, but first of all I've got to find the file. Still looking. I've got to get my stuff sorted out. Here it is. I think this is it. Yeah. Okay, so I know where to look for it. So if I go into studio mode, on this screen I can set up intro, media source, browse, captures, that one there. Okay, so I've transitioned into the new image. Should have fitted it onto the screen first. There we go. So this is just a little something to keep us busy while we're flying over the sea. There's nothing much to see. I'm looking at the big screen of that just now. So this is that little volocopter thing. It's got, I don't know how, there's 12 motors around the outside, and they look like something like 24-inch blades. It's slow, it plods, but it goes on for quite a while. It'll get up to a good 20 knots or something. It doesn't go up very quickly, it doesn't come down very quickly, but it does move. It's very controllable. It's as controllable as a drone. You can slew, bank, roll, all that stuff. So it's just to get an idea of how incredible the view is from up that high. Is that Sugarloaf Mountain there, isn't it? I don't think anything's happening with the flight sim. We're now with Vancouver Centre. So I did this earlier today. I'm actually going to put this in my waiting to board video, which will run for 20 minutes or something like that. This will be one of the videos in there, just saying about to board or boarding in 10 minutes or something like that. Give me a chance to get things settled out and ready before it's time to take off. So this is standard aircraft in Flight Sim 2020. And you literally just fly it like an aeroplane, or well, say a drone. You control the altitude with the throttle. You control the bank angle with the joystick, and the up down nose angles with the joystick, and the pitch with the not the pitch, the roll slew angle with the rudder. And if you're turning, you have to coordinate the turn really well with the rudder, because if you just put a bank on, it just sits at that bank angle and goes sideways. It doesn't think, oh, I've got to turn here. It literally just banks to one side and goes in that direction. So when you're doing a circle around something like this, you have to bank slightly to the, for example, to the left, but at the same time you're introducing the rudder so that you're still pointing in the same direction. Ah, I just had something flash up on my screen and I don't know what it was. I had a blue screen of death this morning. First one of those I've had with this computer. I have no idea what it was. I was running a couple of things at the same time that could have caused the problem. But once again, the new computer just restarted and I have no idea what the problem was. I've got an SSD drive. In fact, there's 3 SSD drives. Two of them are the M2 type and one of them is an SSD drive type thing. The system's on one of the M2s. Change the view back. The reason is just in case the sound keeps flickering on and off a bit. I don't know if that's another window trying to open up in the background. But I'll put some more of that drone flight on again in a bit. How far have we got to go? Let's have a look. Oh, we're running quite slowly on the old... Right, we've got 68 nautical miles to get to YZT, which is quite a few waypoints ahead. Oh, there's a flight plan discontinuity there. I didn't notice that before when I set up the flight plan. Let's see if we can fix that. Seems to go from Hoods to Linus. All Right, that's a big chunk missing. That's the entrance into the or the approach into where we're going. Right, let me see if we can fix this. I'm glad I saw that now. Sorry, waving the screen all over the place. Right, from experience, something's not very happy at the moment. I think I'm using a bit of memory up. There's all this jumping around when I'm moving. So my first idea is just to try and delete that discontinuity, just clear it. That seems to have done the job. That's it. Easy. So let's see. Let's find a... Yeah. We'll just leave that as it is. We have a long way to go. I think it's settled down now. I think it's because the screen was on secondary. Seems to be a bit mountainous over to the right, and just obviously the Pacific over to the left, I would imagine. Maybe it's the height we're at. But if you think about it, what's our actual airspeed? Our total airspeed is 440. Ground speed is 440, even though we're doing 250 knots. Maybe because we're a bit higher. Let's go down a couple of thousand feet and go back down to 35,000 again. 34,000, I mean. I'm not sure what the maximum ceiling of the A320 is, to be honest. That's us being shifted around again. Some of these waypoint names are really weird, aren't they? Ictics. If you're not sure where you are on the flight plan at any time, if you've been jumping up and down, you can just click on flight plan and it'll take you straight to your actual location. But I've no idea where this Ictics is. No idea at all. No clue. The next waypoint is dogs. Now, oh, that's an interesting point. Don't know if anybody's seen this before. So you have ETP circle on the line. That's the equal time point. In other words, that's halfway there. If you need to head for help and you're between, say, 2 points, one side of the ocean and the other side of the ocean, you need to look at where your ETP is so that you can decide which is the best way to go. Now, how's that changed what we're doing? Has it changed anything at all? Airspeed's about the same, isn't it? 445. Ground speed 445. I might get some more memory for this computer. It's running on 32 gigs at the moment, but I'm not sure. That might be holding it up. The other thing I need to do is get a new processor chip. When I upgraded my computer recently, I'm not exactly flush. I couldn't afford to buy a new processor chip, so I kept the same one I had, which was a Ryzen 1700 or something like that. I bought a new motherboard, a new higher spec power supply, and I got a second-hand GeForce GTX 1070. That made a massive difference to what I had before. But when I'm looking at the frames per second, it's always the CPU that's holding me up. It's the CPU that's working at maximum speed the whole time. So I think I'm going to upgrade that next. As soon as I can. It's amazing from the air. Everything looks exactly the same, doesn't it? Let's have a quick look at the map. See if we actually are roughly halfway. Well, there's Igtix there. I'm flying a different route to this, I'm sure. So from there to there to... we're probably about halfway. On the map system, this ISO line tells you anything that's higher than you are, or nearly as high as you are. It highlights all the lumpy bits of ground in your way. So we're going back to Vancouver Centre again. It's really worth... Probably, I think what's happened, the difference between these two flight paths, when you set up your flight plan, in SimBrief, you don't have much control over which way you're going to exit from one airport and how you're going to enter into the next one. And you set up your flight plan and you load it into the airplane. So at the home screen you go to the world view and then you click on more and then load, and then you can load that flight plan that you've saved from SimBrief. That should be it, but it isn't, because SimBrief doesn't think about whether you want to start off on a parking point or whether you want to start off on the end of a runway. So you have to program all that in, and once you've programmed that in, like for example setting off from Bay 18 and then taxiing to the end of the runway and then taking off, usually you find that the SIDs and stars that SimBrief knows are different to the ones that Flight Sim knows. So you end up with different SID for the departure, and so you end up going a different way, and then you end up with a different star coming in for the arrival. And unfortunately what that means is that the flight plan can be different. You end up really with the Flight Sim generating the flight plan even though you originally generated it in SimBrief. Oh look, another airplane. Is that on the radar? Sometimes you can see these aircraft on the radar. Yeah. Easy to see up here. Oh, it's not showing up on the map. On the radar, I mean. There might be a radar setting that I've fiddled with. At the moment, weather radar isn't included. And the reason I believe that is because Microsoft hadn't released the data that lets you extract the weather information in fine detail from the simulator. I was speaking to somebody at Fenix a few days ago, and they said that they were hoping to get weather radar working, but they couldn't give me an estimated time. He said, if I tell you we'll get it done next week, you'll want it done next week, and we might not be able to get it done by then. So I believe in the next update of Fenix, there might be a weather radar update, which would be quite nice. It's hard to imagine what else they're going to update on Fenix. I would imagine one of the first things, I'd really hope they'd do this, is the volume control for when you go outside the aircraft, because the sound level difference is ridiculous. I've just realised I've flown all the way without having any sound from the engines on. That's the background of the engines there. So that's what it's like inside the cabin. If we go outside, It's amazingly different. But it's worth the noise just to see my plane. I love my airplane. Saul, who did the did the livery for me, has made such a fantastic job. I'm sure by the time this video's been out, I bet people would be fed up with me talking about my airplane's livery. Right, I have no idea how far we've got to go. Excuse me. Let's see if we can work it out. Well, I reckon we've got about 320 miles to go. Just over 300 miles. That's a long way still, isn't it? See how the fuel's going. Fuel. So we've still got 5.2 tons of fuel left on board. We started with 8.4, sorry. So we've used 3 and a bit tons of fuel so far. Some of that may have been used when we went up to 36,000 feet. I don't know. I probably lost quite a lot when I was taking off and trying not to crash into anything because the runway was so short. It's a bit like watching paint dry this. I think, what shall I do? Should I do something interesting, like make something break? Or shall I see if we can zip forward using the go-to function? I'd really like to land in Juneau. Well, no one's watching right at the moment, so I'm just going to try this. Travel to descent. Now, what happened last time was I ended up sitting on the water. It's probably one of those things that's incompatible between Fenix and the flight simulator. I'm sort of half worried about where it's going to end up. But I promise, if it crashes, I'll just... Oh, we just did a C-fit. We just did a controlled flight into terrain. Oh, someone watched it as well. Sorry about that. That was me. What I did, I thought I'd try and move forward by going to the start of descent. And you saw what happened. Literally, as it came out of the box, it went straight into the side of a hill or mountain. Darn. Okay. Well, that's the end of that that stream. Oh, sorry about that. What I'm going to do then for later on this evening is set up a shorter flight into Juneau. So I'll be arriving about the same time in real life time. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. Sorry the mess about the end of the stream there, but I'll get used to it. Don't worry, I shall get used to it. Thank you to my viewers, and I'll see you again next time. Oh, by the way, if you can, just stick a video on and leave it running of mine. I need to get my hours up so I can get back to having all my privileges